Welcome back to the podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy Miller. Every week, I chat with fascinating people from all walks of life in order to bring you knowledge, inspiration, and insight. If you enjoy the show, you can support it by subscribing, leaving a review, and sharing it with a friend. This is the Jeremy Miller Podcast. I'm excited to dive into all your running stuff.
Yeah, we'll get into it.
Because you just did a 50 miler like not too long ago, right?
Tried. Dude, so I trained my ass off for this thing, as one would do for any like ultra marathon. And this race was in Patagonia in the national park. So we're like 2.5 hours away from like civilization, deep in the heart of the Patagonia mountains.
That's epic.
And, you know, I did all the things. I hired the right coaches. I followed the right training plan. I was so strong and ready for this thing. And the night before, I'm just like, you know what? It's carbo loading time. And I went out to get food and I got this like street pizza. So sick. I was thrown out. I had to go to the hospital. It was the gnarliest food poisoning I've ever got in my life.
Oh my gosh.
Just doubled over for like 8 to 12 hours. Couldn't stand, couldn't see. It was really bad. So it's a really long way to travel to not run an ultra.
Dang. Yeah. How many miles did you end up getting in?
I didn't even show up to the race. I was in the hospital.
You did another 50-mile race last year, right?
So last year I did the 50-mile Old Cascadia in Oregon.
Okay, I saw that. I must have missed the Patagonia one.
I kept the Patagonia one pretty quiet because it was a total disappointment. I mean, man, I was so transparent about the training and like I had the whole crew behind me, and then to do all of that, and it was like something reasonably outside of my control. I can handle a DNF if I showed up, but I didn't even get to the damn starting line.
Oh my gosh.
You know, and I remember being in the hospital looking at the doctor saying like, hey, what do you think? You think I can go run this tomorrow? And he's like, you're going to have to HVAC you out. Like there's just no way.
Dude. That sucks.
it was painful. And, you know, of course, like the runner's mentality of it's not about the race. It's not about the medal. It's about like who you become on the way to get there. Like all that's true. And I really wanted to run that race.
Yeah. I mean, that's like the cherry on top of everything. It's like the training's good and all that. There's something to that for sure. But especially to travel that far and not be able to actually go through with it.
It was really far.
And I would say that's like 99% out of your control.
Yeah.
I mean, it is what it is. Damn, that sucks.
Yeah.
Have you always been an ultra runner like this?
No, dude. So I like just got into running in the past few years. You know, so quick backstory. I was a elite athlete, you know, 8-time All-American, Division I athlete, 30 plus Colorado State records for swimming, you know, 16 national titles. I was really great for endurance in swimming events. And I broke my back in a surfing accident in my early 20s. And that took me from like this elite endurance guy to like functionally disabled, and I couldn't move. And fitness, there was nothing. There was no running. There was no lifting. There was nothing going on in my life for almost 10 years. And once I learned what needed to get done to like move and feel better, I started working with runners. And I was so tired of getting other people across the finish line and like rehabbing these broken runners who have this love for this thing and now can't do it because their body's like failing them, and showing them the things that they need to do without being a runner, just understanding just basic human movement. And I'm seeing these people get on these podiums and run these marathons and ultra marathons. And I'm sitting over here knowing what I know, no longer having back pain. And it's like, why am I not doing that too? So then I started, and it was a rough start, dude. The last time I had ran before I was 32 years old was for like the 6th grade mile test in PE. That was it. I never loved running. I was never good at land sports. I was a swimmer. So this is like brand new territory for me. I'm still like 3 years into the sport, making all the mistakes a rookie would make and loving it as I go along my way.
I love that.
Yeah.
But do you remember what your mile time was back in 6th grade?
All I remember was just desperately clutching that 4th popsicle stick, right? Because every time you do a lap, you get a popsicle stick to show that you did all that you did all the laps. I don't even think it was timed back then, or if it was, I don't even think it was below 10 minutes. I struggled on land, and that goes back into why probably rehab was so hard for me, because I was never a strong guy. I was really good in low weight bearing environments like the pool, but you put me in a weight room and I never had strength. I never had power. Me like resisting gravity's force, that was not my strong suit. And I didn't move well outside of the water, but you remove gravity and I could kind of move a little bit better. So, most people their body adapts so critically to the sports that we do as kids. And I was a swimmer, so I never really experienced load and impact forces. My bones weren't strong. Soft tissue structures weren't strong. Most of my time was just spent in a zero weight bearing environment like the pool.
Yeah.
So going from that to being broken and then literally starting at square one with what is strength, what is movement, and how do you get better at being a higher quality human being on land. That was what my rehab journey started off as. So this stuff's all new.
Dude, I love that. Have you dealt with a lot of injuries in the last 3 years because of that, not being used to that impact?
I've dealt with a lot of discomfort, but never injuries. And this is where the world that I teach people. So by the time I started running at 32, I had about 10 to 12 years of like biomechanics and rehab and joint motion and the right muscles doing the right work. So like a lot of motor control training. I had no strength and no endurance. So, on most of my runs, they were way harder than I could do. So I noticed like a lot of inflammation, a lot of aches and pains, but never any injuries that sidelined me, like knock on wood. And I think it is a testament to the work that I now teach people. It just made it more capable to go do the hard things. And one of the biggest approaches that I have is, everybody's always trying to put work and push their body. That was my relationship too with sports. When I finally, when I broke my back, you can't push something like that. In fact, it takes the exact opposite. You have to learn how to relax. You've got to learn how to unwind and downregulate the nervous system. And that was my wheelhouse for the longest time. So when I would go push myself on a run, and when I say push myself, I mean like a half a mile starting or a mile starting, I knew the mechanisms for how to let the body rest and recover. My recovery game was on point. My active game was zero. And I think that's why I was able to actually get through it without running through most of the normal injuries that a lot of runners are running into.
Yeah. How old were you when you first started swimming?
Probably 7 or 8 years old. So
were you naturally pretty good at it?
Yeah. I mean, it was like the first meet I broke a pool record. It was just, I tried all the sports. I tried baseball. I tried basketball. My coach was my uncle for my basketball team. And I remember him coming over for a family dinner and just suggesting I try something different. Because I was playing basketball with him for 2 years and didn't make one basket. And anytime anybody threw me the ball, I would just giggle because I got nervous. I was not great at sports. But I tried to join the local swim team and set a record on my first meet, like without even knowing what I was doing. I was just good at it. And I loved being in the water. And so it was just, energy just flowed in that direction because it was the easiest damn thing to me. And soon after you know it, I mean, by the time I was like 9 or 10 years old, I was doing 11 practices a week, 2-a-days. And it was my life until I was about 18, 19.
That's amazing. And you said, what were the records you broke in, was that high school and college?
Oh yeah, it was, so most of them were state records, relay events, pool records, meet records, you name it. And some of them still stand to this day, which, I'm 35 now. So this is 20 plus years ago. Dang. And these records are still standing. And our knowledge of sports and how to train kids is getting better. So I was good. For a really short amount of time, man. I was like the king of the pool. It felt really good. And this is what laid the center stage for me thinking I really had a chance, man. I wanted to go to the 2008 Olympics and represent our country for swimming. And I had this dream of just, I think like everybody does in sports, how do you get to the top of it? And to have all of these big ambitions and then like literally in a single wave, just everything was just wrecked and destroyed. So yeah, swimming was my sport.
Dang. How old were you when you broke your back?
It was the early 20s. So like right when I just turned 20.
Jeez. So was that maybe like junior year of college?
Yeah. So I did freshman year at UW, swam for University of Wyoming, and Division I athletics that's a different beast.
Yeah.
And you can't miss. I mean, it's tough, man. Even if you're on a partial scholarship of them paying for your books, like they own you. And Division I athletics, it took this like love of a sport that I had and I think we worked it out to the amount of hours that I'm putting into the sport and the scholarship that I got. I think I was earning like 35 cents an hour as a collegiate athlete,
Oh my
because you
gosh.
can't work, you can't hold down meaningful
Right.
jobs. And after my first year of UW, I just got so burned out and I decided to go lighten this up a little bit. Moved out to California, swam for Ventura Community College, which was one of the best community college programs in the country for swimming. And that's when I kind of wanted to find a different sport, something to just fall in love with again, and started surfing. I was a hell of a better surfer or a swimmer than I was a surfer. And, I was strong enough to paddle out to those waves, but man, I sucked at surfing. I could get out past the waves, but I didn't really know what to do once I caught a wave. And so that's what led to my demise.
Dang. Surfing is so hard.
There's so much that you have to do and manage. Just the getting out there, man,
I
is the
know.
hard part. So
Getting out there, and then the skill of like reading the waves and understanding when to get on a wave, and like, and so that's half the battle. Then once you're on the wave, how do you ride the wave? It's like there's so much to it.
Yeah.
Dang. How long were you actually able to surf for before your injury?
I had like a couple months.
That's
it
it?
wasn't
Oh, man.
long, and I remember it was we had a huge swell come to Southern California, and I remember looking at these waves on the beach, and like the good surfers were like, I'm not going out in that. And so naturally my ego is like, we're going out in that. I was one of the only guys foolish enough to go paddle out into this. And my downfall was I was a strong enough swimmer to get out there, but I was not a strong enough surfer to actually manage the power of the ocean that day. And literally the first wave, first set, it just spit me up and threw me on my back, and my lower back hit a rock. And I knew it in the moment that happened that I was not going to come above the surface of the water the same. I mean, I remember like trying to look down, and this was when I was like in the water still, under the water. I remember looking down at my left leg because I thought I got ripped off. Like I just didn't feel it. I felt my right leg kicking to the surface, but my left leg was just numb.
Oh,
So
geez.
it was just an immediate like shock of, oh, we did something.
Yeah. And it was what's like the technical term for that injury? Just, I mean, it's a broken back, obviously.
Yeah. So the technicalities were I had a T12 fracture. So right in that junction, right at the top of the lumbar spine in the mid back, I fractured that vertebrae. Due to the force and the trauma of the impact, I had multiple herniations. The nerve damage was so severe that my spine buckled and curved, shifted 21 degrees to the left.
Jeez.
So, and I've got some x-rays on my social account showing it. My spine just looks twisted and mangled from that. I mean, you can almost see like where the rock hit my back, and it just shifted in a spasm.
Gosh.
And it stayed there for years.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it was basically a decade before you got back into like being active. And did you do much like after you got healed back up before you started running?
Yeah.
Or was that kind of a decade of just not doing a whole lot, or what did that look like?
Yeah, it was, I think from that point, my story is probably like a lot of people's, which is like when you're in pain, you go see the experts, the PTs, chiros, doctors. Man, I tried so many things. My hand was in, I got to do Pilates. No, it's yoga. No, it's PT. No, I got to just go to the gym and do some like group fitness classes, or no, I'm going to find health and fitness on a spin bike first. I was so random and disorganized because I was desperate. I tried everything I could think of to get out of pain and just feel better. And not only did my body feel this way, but like my roots and origins are like endurance athletes. Those endorphins and that like capacity to work your body, I didn't have that. So I was on the hunt for that in whatever way, shape I could. I even found those like little arm wheelie things at the gym where you're just sitting down doing like arm circles, thinking this was my new sport. Like this is what I can now get into because I don't really have a lot of back movement. And so, I tried a lot, and a lot of it led nowhere. A lot of it led to just more pain. And it took a really long time to understand that I was bringing dysfunction into everything. So when I would go ride a spin bike, I was bringing all of this movement impairment and muscular dysfunction onto that bike. And when you strengthen the body, I was strengthening those problems. So I was in this really nasty, vicious cycle for 10 years. The stronger I'd get, the worse I felt. The less I did, the worse mentally I felt. And I was just, it felt like a kite in a hurricane, just caught between these two massive forces. And I couldn't win either way. And that's what ultimately led me to what I now teach, which is like gentle movement, like simple ways to start moving the body again. And it started out without weights. It started out on my floor. How do my feet work? How can I get those joints to move and work better together? And then my knees and my hips. And I just kind of took it one body part at a time, just being grateful that I could do any motion in any joint. Once things started to move and feel better and my body became more capable again, that's when I started to entertain, let me go back to the gym. And every time I did, I kept getting injured. And it was so frustrating. I was a personal trainer. I was a corrective exercise specialist. Man, I had the academic education, and I couldn't like outthink this problem. Anything I did was just managing more pain and more symptoms. And it took an entirely different approach to therapy that really revolutionized how I approach movement and the problem.
And what does that look like now? It's a big question.
Yeah, it's a big question.
Because it seems like you have a super unique approach
to
everything.
Yeah.
And I'm really excited to hear all about it.
So what I was missing was understanding my relationship to intensity. And rightfully so, because when you're born and raised as an athlete, it's all no pain, no gain.
Yeah.
When you're in pain and you feel something really big, you're looking for something really intense to meet that internal signal. My movement practice now is understanding the spectrum of intensity. You don't have to meet everything with force and power. There are other ways to meet your body, like learning how to breathe and get things to relax, putting your body in positions that relax muscular imbalance. Like when I now go for long runs, understanding what I can do to relax maybe a stride imbalance or how I was landing harder on my right leg. It's putting my body in positions and just allowing the nervous system to just downregulate and relax. I had spent so much time learning how to put work in the body and getting nowhere that I now focus on how to take work out, and that helps me go now do the hard things. So my movement practice every day is just learning, do I need to dial in, put more intensity in, or do I need to take it out? And as I've now gotten into the world of ultra running, that running this far and this long, it checks the box for intensity. Of course, weightlifting, doing cross training is really great for that. But I find the most value in, at the end of the day, learning how to unwind it so I can feel human again the next day and go do the same thing again and again and again. So I am primarily focused on nervous system resets and how do you downregulate the system? How do you calm down symptoms and just begin to activate this parasympathetic, lowered heart rate, lowered blood pressure, and help your body actually heal.
I love that. And I feel like that's something not a lot of people talk about. Especially in the fitness space, on Instagram, it's all about like, the no pain, no gain mindset of like, you got to be out there hustling and grinding and, hitting PRs in your lifts and all this stuff. And it's like, if you're just go all the time and you never take the time to actually recover and unwind, it's like, you're going to inevitably get hurt or cause some long-term thing. So what does that look like for you on a daily basis? How do you do that unwinding?
Yeah. So step one, man, is, and of course it makes sense when I say it, but actually putting into practice, this is the hard part because we all have such limited amount of time. We want to go do the most effective thing. Before I do any body work, there is a 5 to 10 minute calibration period. And it could be as simple as lying on your back with both legs over a chair, right? Both hips and knees at 90 degrees. Your arms are by your head and there's no movement. If we're trying to do any body work, most people get straight to the deep mobility stuff, the stuff where they feel sensations happening. And that can make it feel very effective, but we're doing that work with the body that we're trying to change, meaning we're doing that work with the problem itself. And most mobility flows actually just make the problem more mobile. It doesn't actually resolve the problem. So step one of my self-care routine is to just actually stop moving, put the right side and the left side of the body in the same position at the same time, and allow things to settle and relax. So that way, when I then go do any movement, I've got better access to both sides. And I'm not coming in with my right side more tense or my left side a little bit more relaxed. I'm bringing the body into a mobility routine with the highest chance of both sides working better together as possible. And the hard part about this is slowing down. It's not sexy to lay on your back. How many, people are you going to inspire when you take videos of yourself doing nothing? But that's where the magic is. And it's getting back in your body. It's just checking what's going on, literally head to toe. Where am I feeling tension? What's feeling tight? What's feeling achy? Learning how to breathe motion into these spots, and then going to go do your motion routine, whether it's high intensity or it's just gentle, simple, subtle stuff. It's our point of entry that really, really matters on this stuff.
Yeah, sounds almost like a meditation too, to where not only are you getting your body kind of reset a little bit, but your mind. And so much of this stuff, running, strength training, all that is so dependent on the nervous system. And if that's not in balance, or if something, is not the way it should be, it's even within the nervous system, something that you might not physically be able to see, it's going to cause some other thing, right?
It's not a matter of if it will, it's a matter of like how it is and what it's doing. So we're all trying to perform, right? We want to feel better. We want to move better. We want to look better. Well, this requires our nervous system to do so. And how our nervous system engages critically matters. And if we are only engaging it and we're never allowing it to rest and relax, and I'm not talking about on a couch, right? I'm not talking about reading a book or watching your favorite show. I'm talking about really intelligent relaxing that allows both sides of your body to receive the same stimulus, because most people's don't. Most people's, for example, like in a strength routine, they might always start lunges with their right leg first. They might always do box steps and stepping down with their right leg. We're treating our nervous system not the same on both sides of our body. So most people have the experience of mileage getting higher, weights getting heavier, and their body needing longer and longer of a time to recover. That's not just because the work is hard, but because we are stressing this nervous system dysfunction. We are no longer properly recruiting these muscles simultaneously on both sides of our body. We start using one side more. This is why one joint starts to hurt more, even though the same body is doing the same mileage, the same body is lifting the same weights. One side of our body starts to break down more than the other. We have asymmetrical joint pain. One hip gets tighter, one side of our neck or lower back or shoulder. All of these little early on warning signs that our nervous system has lost regulation, and we push until we just push ourselves into our next injury. So the work that I do is just hitting the pause button on pushing just for a moment and beginning to restore that neuromuscular communication. So when it comes time to move, the body you're bringing into that activity, you can actually elicit better function on both sides.
So in addition to the lay on your back, hips, knees, ankles at 90 degrees, what else do you do?
Yeah, so so again, lying on my back, reducing compensation. I'll then lift one leg off the ground and I'll communicate with my right foot, and I'll do clockwise circles for a minute, and then I'll do counterclockwise circles. So it's almost like a checklist of, okay, foot, can you move by yourself? Yes, great. Then I'll do an exercise for my knees, whether it's like a simple knee extension, leg raise on my back. Can my right leg work? Great. Now let me do it with my left leg. So it's a very simple checklist. It's almost like a movement hygiene. Ankle, can you work today? Knee, hip, great. Left side, ankle, knee, hip, great. Now, can they both move and do these simple things together? And I'd love to make this real for anybody. I've got so many free exercises on my page where I show these little simple functional things. It's putting the body in positions where you're not going to go compromise your movement. So most people get right into mobility work, which is like multiple joints and muscle groups working together. The start of mobility work is first, let's make sure the ankle can be an ankle when it comes time to move. Is there any irregularities there that we can work on? What about the knee? What about the hip? So it's almost isolating motion temporarily as step one to make sure that things can work when you need them to. And then the next move is to build in more motion. So now it's compound motion. Now it could be something as simple as bridges, right? Let's first make sure the right hip can work. Then let's make sure the left hip can work. And then let's bridge and get both hips to work together. And it's not hard. It's not intense. It's just neuromuscular communication. So then when it comes time to run, the right leg can do its job. The left leg can do its job. And the only thing left for you to do is just put in the work. and both sides are capable of receiving force about the same. So step 1, it's relaxing. Step 2, it's just doing a little bit of a movement hygiene checklist, making sure things have some really good motion, and then it's integrating motion and then doing the damn activity. And you can get that done in like 15 to 25 minutes. It's not long and exhaustive. And your ability to then show up the next day and do it again and again, this is where the magic happens.
Is this something you do every day or every day before you train at least?
I used to be really religious about it. I used to do it every single day. My movement practice was unwavering. And what I've found is that I can probably get away with doing it every other day now, every maybe third day. So it's now no longer something I do every single day. I've improved function enough to where I can just go out there and run. There isn't some long, exhaustive warm-up routine. My body is movement ready. So if you were to say right now, let's just go on a run, we can go do that because all of the soft tissue structures work really well. Depending on the volume and the load of training. So when I've got very high mileage, when I start to go above 50 miles a week, that's when I notice I need to start doing it daily. I need that daily, hey muscles, here's how you guys work. And this is how you need to support me. Without it, it's like without a system of checks and balances, and then things start to feel really funky. And I notice like bending forward starts to feel stiff. I notice putting on my running shoes gets a little harder than it needs to be.
Yeah. So you mentioned doing like ankle, what is the right word? Ankle rolls? Or...
Yeah. So circular ankle motions is one of them.
And then anything else you do for ankles?
Yeah, really basic. So rocking chair. So imagine you're like lying on your back. Or actually, anybody listening to this, I want them to sit in a chair, sit upright in the chair, put a yoga block or a pillow or a foam roller, put something between your knees. You're going to hold on to that object between your knees, so actively squeeze it with your inner thigh, your groin. And all I want you to do is lift up the front of your foot, so dorsiflex, hold for a second or two, and then gently roll the foot down and then lift the heel. Hold it for a second or two. And you're just rocking back and forth. And what you're doing is you're practicing the weight transfer when you're moving. You're getting your toes and your ankles and all of these stabilizing muscles in the ankle, knee, and the hip to just fluidly work together. And it's like 2 or 3 minutes of that. Again, it's that movement hygiene checklist. And you're doing that with the ankles. And then you can do a really simple hip rotation exercise to make sure right hip and left hip, these guys can synchronize and rotate together. A lot of people might call that a 90-90. I teach it when you're lying on your back and you just kind of windshield wiper and you go, it's not fast mobility. It's let's get both hips and pelvic joints to synchronize together. So you're teaching your weight, you're teaching your feet how to move your weight forward. You're then teaching your hips to rotate. And this is all of what we need to walk and run, our 2 most primary forms of locomotion. So you're almost practicing these movement patterns that are going to show up in the real world. So before long runs, I'll go do that. After long runs, I'll take a couple minutes and make sure that I can still do that function. Because if you just go stress the hell out of your body on a run and then you stop, maybe you cool down your heart rate. If you don't also cool down that physiological neuromuscular tension, this is why we hold on to tension the next day, why we feel a little stiffer and more tight on our run the next day. Yeah, it's because the muscles were worked. Of course, there's fatigue. Maybe there might be a little damage there. But if we don't practice that range of motion daily, we lose that range of motion daily. And the moment I see mileage start to increase, that's where people really start to sideline the important mobility stuff. And it all becomes so focused on mileage.
That's the tricky thing is like, the more time you spend running, the less time you usually have to do this. And that's when it becomes even more important. So it's like this weird kind of situation where it's like you're spending more time running, you know, but that's again, when you need it the most. So I guess as somebody, you know, for a lot of people listening to this are busy, they have kids or families and jobs and stuff like, what advice would you maybe have to somebody if, okay, they're running 60, 70 miles a week or they're running a lot? How do you implement something like this if you don't have, you know, an extra 30 to 45 minutes a day to do something like that?
Yeah. So you really got a great question. You got to take a step back and look at where do I want to be at in a year from now? If we look at the trajectory of most people's movement practice or mobility practice, it typically follows this journey. when you don't know how to take care of yourself, when you don't understand movement and mobility work, the very first step is, you having to carve out a specific time of day to take care of your body. And that's the hardest part, is going from nothing to something, especially when you're very jam-packed for time. But that's not a forever thing. When you start to understand how to properly move and the exercises and the stimulus and the movements that you need to take care of your body, instead of having this extra time that you have to carve out daily, you begin to integrate movement more intelligently throughout your day. So now you don't have to stop being a father. You don't have to stop being a business person. You don't have to stop doing the things that you're doing. You're just slowly integrating motion. Like, I already have practiced those ankle motions a couple times, and it's not too much effort. We're doing two things. We're having a great conversation, we're connecting, and I'm just getting a little bit of motion in my foot. Whereas somebody without that, it would just sit still, right? And we wouldn't move at all until it comes time for that only time that I've got carved out for my day. So you've got to understand that your movement practice now is not going to be your movement practice in a year. As you evolve, the end goal is for you not to master a 30-minute routine every day. The end goal is for you as a human being to not have a mobility routine. It is to just move more intelligently throughout the day. Our ancestors did not have a mobility routine before they went to go hunt. There was movement throughout the day that regulated their body, and that's where our body best thrives. We can't just move for 30 minutes a day and expect that to accommodate the other 23 and a half hours. But until we get there, we have to start off with short, simple, easy, attainable steps. You can't go from not being a runner to being an ultra runner without first figuring out, how can I run a quarter of a mile without dying? And then a half a mile, and start from there. So one of the things that I teach people, those who are really struggling for time, is give me 15 minutes a day. If you're pressed for time, I know that's a lot, and I can't make that decision for you. 15 minutes is worth it. But if you can make 15 minutes, I'll show you the first step. I'll give you a couple exercises that you can start doing every day. And it's really cool, because as you start to move and feel better, you start to want to make more time for that, because you realize, oh, I'm more present as a spouse. I'm more present as a person trying to run a career and build something, because I feel better in my body. We first have to get a couple great wins, which is just you saying yes to a few exercises a day. It doesn't need to be some big, long, drawn out, hour-long thing. We can actually make some incredible improvements in a short time, but that's where we have to start. And it's not going to be that way forever. When we start to move and feel better, I'll show you more of what to do, and then I'll show you how to integrate this stuff into your life.
That's great. That was a perfect answer.
Hell yeah, we're getting perfect answers
dude,
here.
I mean, that's great, because it's, I mean, I think people, it comes down to priorities, right?
Yeah.
Like, how important is it to you to like feel good and perform well if you're training for a marathon or whatever you're doing? And if it really is important, like, I think everybody has 15 minutes.
Yeah.
It's like, how many episodes of Netflix are you watching every night? Or how many hours are you spending scrolling through Instagram every
look
day?
at your screen time. You'll figure out really quickly.
Yeah.
And I also really want to be fair to the people out there. I didn't care about movement until I couldn't. And that's most people.
Yeah.
Most people will not make time for their body and prioritize ankle movement and hip rotation until now their body is preventing them from doing the things that they love. And even then will begrudgingly start to do self-care practices. So today, if you look at today, it's probably a really hard thing to find value in. But if you start looking out, if I feel the way I do now, well, knowing that the body doesn't usually feel better with age, right? We lose 1% of range of motion. We lose 1% of strength per year past the age of 25. Project it out for a second. How do you think you're going to feel in 5 years and 10 years? Do you want to be that parent that is able to play with your kids as long as possible? Do you want to be the parent that can walk your child down the aisle? Like, you've got to think about big picture. What do you want to do? Because most people, unless you're maybe like a freak like you and I, is excited to go do our movement routine today. You've got to find out, what do you value? And it's not that mobility is valuable, it's what it allows you to go do. And if that's what you can keep front and center, it is so much easier to say, I'm going to turn on Netflix while I do my thing. you know what? I can go stalk my ex while I'm doing my mobility routine. You can do all these things together.
Yeah.
You don't, it's not that complicated. It just has to matter to you. And until it does, there's no magic exercise I could ever give you that's going to make the real difference that you want to make.
Yeah. Yeah, that's an important point. And I think most people know what it takes. I think most people know that McDonald's probably isn't good for them, but it's the easier thing to do. It's a more convenient thing to do. It's easier to not do a mobility exercise, to not do a routine until you have to, because you have an injury or you push too far, and now you are forced to do it, basically.
Yeah.
That's the sad part, is for whatever reason I think most humans are wired that way. Is you wait until it's a necessity until you actually do it. Being proactive is not easy.
No, it's not. And the really interesting thing about what you said, I'm like starting to squirm because I'm thinking about it. So I shared with you, I hated running. I love the runner's high. And what I was so surprised to learn about, and I don't know if you had the same experience, I thought that, so now I can run 50 miles. I can run, and when I say run, I'm using air quotes here because there's some walking in an ultra, you know?
Definitely. Unless you're Zach Bitter.
Yeah, unless you're Zach Bitter and you sprint towards the finish on the 100th mile. So even being capable of being on my feet and run, walk, hiking for 15 hours, I thought that voice in my head that is with me trying to beg me to stop, that little voice that's saying, oh, you don't have to go run today. I thought that now being an ultramarathon runner, that voice would go away because I'm so damn capable and I'm so good at this thing now and this is my identity and I love it. Man, that voice is still with me every time I go put on my shoes, whether it's a 15, 30-minute recovery run or it's a 4 or 5 hour hard training session. And my biggest misconception was I thought that would get easier, and it doesn't. And I'm a mobility guy. I'm a movement expert. This is what I do. And I still have to have that negotiation every day to do my mobility stuff. And I think, and I hope people hear this who are not in that practice or maybe want to be, to maybe like loosen that relationship. I don't think you're ever, unless you have a totally different experience, you know, this is mine and I'm probably projecting on a lot of people, but I don't think it ever is easy to do it. You just have to be very clear on why you're doing it, and that makes it easier. But man, it is still an uphill battle every damn mile.
Yeah, that was to a T my experience.
Yeah.
Every single day.
Do you still have like a lot of that resistance, or are you
Every
like
day.
flow? Because you're in great shape. I mean, you're doing a lot right now.
Yeah. Oh, it's every day.
Is it ever not there?
It's not. No, it's always there. And
Yeah.
I think what I've come to learn is it's always going to be there. Some days it's louder than others. You know, some, like I was just in Jamaica this week. Like I was excited to go run.
Yeah.
But I'm like, I don't really want to go run 5 miles. but it's like, you know, again, some days it's easier. But I find that it doesn't get easier necessarily. It just, you get more used to it, and you learn how to work around it. If that kind of makes sense. It's like,
Yeah.
every day, you know, you have to go run 5 miles, 10 miles, whatever it is. And that voice is telling you don't have to, you don't want to, but you learn like tricks to get through that, I think.
How do you relate to that? Like, what is all right, so it's time to go do your work. It's probably really early in the morning, and that resistance shows up. What is your trick or tool? How do you like speak to it? How do you engage with that?
I personify it sometimes.
Yeah.
Of like, I don't have a name for it or him necessarily, but I know that it's like this other, it's like an alter ego in my mind, I guess. And so sometimes personifying it helps, of just like, just shut up, just tell him to shut up. Or, because it's a conversation in your head that you have for sure. I would say more often than not, it's just, I know I have to do it. It's like, I try to make it a non-negotiable, where it's like, I know that voice is going to try and negotiate, but I'm like, no, it's not. This isn't even a negotiation. It's just, we have to do it. This is what we do. Yeah. And I think that mindset helps a lot because it doesn't even open the door for, okay, we're not going to run today. It's just, this is what we do. And it's you make it a part of your identity, a part of who you are as a person. And I think that makes those decisions sometimes a little easier, I guess. Or again, you just get more used to it, I suppose.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about you? What do you tell yourself when that resistance shows up?
Man, when I try to dominate that voice, shut up. You're not the boss of me. Like when I meet it with like a male aggression, it pushes back hard and it wins. So when I like ignore it and avoid it, when I pretend it's not there, when I try to like minimize it and conquer it, man, I'm turning home really soon.
Oh, interesting.
I have to be playful. And I think I just deal with humor through trauma. Like that was just my coping mechanism as a kid. Do we curse on this podcast?
Yeah. Say whatever you want.
Oh, this little bitch is showing up now in mile 1, or it's even here before we even put our shoes on. Like, welcome today. What more do you have? Give me your best. I have to be jovial with it to take its power away. Otherwise, if I meet it with resistance, it's not long before I'm done. But when I meet it with humor, it just deflects it and minimizes. It is like my shield, because that's how I meet humor with any traumatic situation, which running 5 hours can be traumatic sometimes, you know? And I found that if I'm light and playful with it, I'm going to run until I don't want to run anymore, until I've done the thing.
Do you find that voice, that resistance to, I don't want to go do this today, is that the same voice or is it different than, when you do a 50-mile ultramarathon and you're at mile 40 and everything hurts and it's painful and it's telling you to quit? Is that the same voice, you think? To me, it's different, but I'm curious to hear your opinion.
Interesting. I've always related to it as like the same thing. It just gets more real. It just gets louder, because when I hit that upper 30-mile range on a 50-mile race, then it's like, oh yeah, you probably should stop. Like your knees aren't working or your heart rate is spiking and you're walking. It's time to tap out and go home. So what's harder for me in those moments is to like play off the physiological signs that my body is screaming at me to say, we've pushed it. We ran by too many aid stations. You didn't eat, you didn't drink. So then I kind of like justify it with very real world scenarios. And that is like trying to keep me more safe. So I have to pull even deeper into the space of, yes, all of that's real. I hear you. It's valid. And we're not done yet. I have to be a little bit more like parental with it, a little bit more like validating instead of just dismissive or playful, because I don't want to laugh on my 40th mile. I maybe want to cry. I don't want to laugh. Laughter, humor is like out of my body. There's no more energy to be humorous. I can't. What I learned in my first ultra, I was prepared for physical breakdowns. I was prepared for that voice, mental breakdowns. I was not prepared for like an emotional breakdown. And what I found out in my ultra is it's easy to be playful and jovial and dismiss and minimize things until you are at your wit's end and point of exhaustion. And when you have no more effort to deploy coping mechanisms, you are left with like the realness and rawness of like who you are and what your character is. And I wasn't ready for that. Man, I was ready for a nutritional breakdown. I was not ready for like old childhood stuff to show up of like, you're not worthy enough. I remember in my first ultra, I hired Zach. Zach Bitter's an incredible coach. He worked with me on the nutrition. He worked with me on the training. I was so ready for this thing. And all of a sudden it came time for race day. And towards mile 7, I didn't want to drink. I didn't want to eat. Electrolyte, like mile 7, and I'm having a gut breakdown. Oh my God, this is not going to go well. And I didn't have anything from mile 7 to about mile 30. Like no water, no electrolytes. It just, it wasn't like sipping water took so much willpower to go do. My body just rejected it. I was also doing a terrain that I was just grossly underprepared for, even though I tried preparing for it as possible. It was an ultra with 15,000 vertical feet of altitude climb.
Over 50 miles?
Yeah, over 50 miles.
That's a lot.
Yeah, and I live right by the Malibu Mountains, and there's no distance that I could cover that could even remotely get to 8,000 to 10,000. So I was I was out of my league with this territory and this terrain. And it was very technical. And the mountains were so sharp sometimes. It was just more than what I was used to. And this was in the first 7 miles. And man, I had that, oh shit moment in that first 7 miles of that race. And I think it just stressed me out. And, you know, I couldn't eat, I couldn't drink. I was like hallucinating, I was spinning. Before I had even reached the 20-mile mark, you know, I wasn't even halfway done in this race. And I was running into some very oh shit signs of this is not going to go well. And so I sat with that for like 4 or 5 hours. What am I going to tell my followers? How am I going to say I DNF'd? I'm like Mr. Rehab and push your body and understand yourself. And I can't even go do this thing. Oh, I'm going to tell people I got lost, or I took a wrong turn, or I started just making up stuff because just me showing up and trying my hardest wasn't good enough. And then I started to think of, oh yeah, I remember that time with my parents, and oh, that happened when I was a kid, and oh, I guess I feel like I'm never good enough. And why am I out here? Am I trying to prove that I'm like, that I can do this, or that other people think I'm now valuable because I can go do something hard? Why do I have to go push myself to this extreme to go be worthy of something, of love? Man, I went through the trenches. And I'm on like mile 37 on my hands and knees, crying, dry heaving, and just It was not good. And I made a phone call to one of my friends because I didn't have the tools to deal with that. I was not prepared for that showing up. It was like no amount of therapy that I had been in was equipping me to deal with a breakdown of that magnitude. Man, I forgot who I was, dude. It was bad. And I remember so randomly having cell phone signal, just enough service. I probably could make one phone call. And I called my best friend at the time, who I knew. He's more of like on the David Goggins side of things, like, shut up, do it. Yeah. I don't care, do it. You know, and I called him and he's like, hey man, how's it going? I'm like, not good. I'm not gonna do it. And as I'm on the phone, I text my ride saying, pick me up on the next aid station. I'm tapping out.
Oh my gosh.
And he's just like, hey man, what'd you think this was going to be fucking easy? You think you were just going to stroll across the finish line? You knew this was going to kill you. And now what are you going to do about it? And I'm like, dude, I haven't ate, I haven't drank, I haven't done all these things. Like, I was validating every reason why I couldn't do this. And he just says, yes. And that's just the story you're telling yourself. None of it's real. You just are making it real. And I'm like, no. And he's like, no, shut up and go. I want you to run. Just finish. And dude, I brushed myself off, literally like stereotypical, dusted off my shoulders. Like I got back to my feet. I ran as fast as I could for as hard as I could for the next 13 miles. And I just silenced that voice for the first time. I just overpowered it and it worked well. And where I'm going with this is like, I didn't have the energy to be playful. I didn't have the energy to engage and dialogue with it. It was just a mind over matter. And that was the only thing that got me through that finish line.
Dude, that just gave me chills. The whole time you were telling that story, that was so good. And that's why I love running so much, dude. Because where else can you get an experience like that? I mean, like psychedelics, maybe? I don't know.
Yeah, and even then, like, you know, it's a thing that's happening to you. Like, you're not driving it, you know? So psychedelics have maybe taken me there, but not that deep. Yeah. And not that aware. I was at that finish line a different man than when I was at the start line, a different man than I was at the finish line. Like, I changed on that run, man, and I did not go back from that run. That gave me more therapy than anything I've ever been through in my life. It was healing. It was amazing. And I hope maybe one day I don't have to push myself to that extreme to get help, but maybe I do for now.
Yeah, dude. Dylan, clip that right there. That was so good. Oh my gosh, dude. That was like one of the best explanations I've heard. I'm not just saying this, like one of the best explanations I've heard of an ultramarathon experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude, that was, oh my gosh, that was beautiful.
Thanks, man. It didn't feel beautiful at the time, but
I know it didn't.
yeah.
Yeah, I've done 4 50-mile races,
Yeah.
and every time it's like that. It's maybe you get a little bit faster, you feel maybe physically a little bit better throughout it because your training gets better, you get more used to it. But that mental thing, it comes up every single time. And like when you were saying, like, you start thinking about your childhood and like you start questioning, like, why am I doing this? Like,
Why?
it's so real, and I think everybody experiences that. It's so relatable.
Did you have you had a breakdown like that?
Internally, definitely.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm not like super outwardly emotional.
Yeah.
Really, just in general. And so
Just crying on the inside.
basically, yeah, literally.
Same, man. Same.
Yeah, I internalize it for sure, but the same emotions without a doubt. Yeah, when you start asking the why, that's where it gets real, and that's where it gets like powerful, I think. And that's where you know, at least to me, I almost look forward to that point in a race where I start asking myself, why the fuck am I out here?
I could be at home with my.
Yeah.
You just got engaged.
Yeah.
I could be at home with my fiance. We could be having a great time, but I'm here right now, punishingly doing something. And it goes back. It goes full circle back to the mobility stuff, man. If you don't have a why, you're not gonna make it through it.
Yeah.
If you don't have a why, you're not gonna show up every day. And if you don't have a why when shit gets hard, because it will, you're going to tap out at the next aid station. You just will.
Yeah.
And it comes down to your capacity to have a vision of yourself and what you want to feel and what you want your life to look like. Getting out of pain is not enough to commit yourself to mobility. Because once you're out of pain, if that's your why, you're just going to stop. If your goal is to just run a marathon, which, hell yeah, great. I think that's how it starts. What happens after that thing's done? We probably go back to the same lifestyle that was unfulfilling in the first place. We've got to be clear on like, what is our why? And that has to be greater than the task at hand today and the hard stuff, because that's what gets us through it.
Did you find the answer to that why question when you were out there?
You know, I knew when I looked at that race course profile, I remember breaking it down with Zach, and we were coming up with racing and training strategies for how to manage each section. I knew on that 4th and final climb at mile 37, I just knew there was my demon. I knew he was there. I knew I was going to run into him. And maybe I just created that, you know. I can be a dramatic guy, so I probably just, you know, foretold my own prophecy there. My why is because I only get to learn about myself in those moments of breakdown. That's it. And it's as much as I'm a huge advocate and supporter for therapy and mental health, all this stuff, dude, it's so great. But there is a difference between sitting in a chair and talking about problems and working through them on your own. And I think it takes both. For me, and running and long distance, I can only work on fortifying myself when I'm comfortable as good as possible. I can only breathe and do breath work and my calming movement practice. I can only kind of envision how to build character and becoming a tougher, more resilient man. But it's just theory. It's just me thinking about it. The only time to practice that is in those hard moments. And that's what ultra training is. It's not about the miles. It's not about the time. It's who am I when I want to quit? And that's the time to work on myself. What shows up? How do I parent myself? What memories and repressed emotions and trauma? Like those are those moments where it comes out. And how I've learned to parent myself in those hard times has been more effective than anything I've done for mental health and character development and processing what happened to me as a kid. Like that's what gets me. That's what makes me feel like more of a complete man. It's what makes me live more in my heart. It's what makes me become a better father. I'm a better father after saying yes to really hard shit, period. My ability and my threshold for showing up for my 10-year-old son and the wildness of having a kid is better after I say yes to really hard things. And so my why is more of that. My why for doing mobility is because I get to learn about who I really am when I have no more energy to deflect with humor, when I've got no more energy to be in denial and pretend things. I just have to deal with the problem right now. And that only happens in those moments of breakdown. And I can actually voluntarily create those. So if I can create that, I can better manage the world coming at me. And it has less power, because when you choose to put yourself in a position like that, what's somebody else going to do to you? Try. Like I do this on a daily basis. You don't have any power over me. I hurt my own feelings every day on these long runs. Like, what do you think you can do? You know, I notice like the haters and comments. I just stopped caring less. I bulletproofed my heart by going deep, and that's what running gave me. And so I now do self-care practice in one way, shape, or form every day, so I can go to that place as many times as possible.
Yeah, I love that. Have you seen the studies on, I think it came out maybe earlier last year, about physical activity being more beneficial at like basically preventing anxiety, depression than the therapy and pills?
Yeah, just the bullet points, like it's like what, 1.5 times more effective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so true. Rogan just had this lady on. I cannot remember her name. It was a recent episode, but she wrote a whole book about this, like specifically about how therapy and pills can actually just make things worse, like exacerbates all these problems, because you're just sitting around like talking about it. And if it works for you, do it. It's great. Like, I'm not trying to judge anybody, but like, I think that there's definitely something to the physical aspect of just going out and doing something that you don't want to do.
Yeah.
And have you heard the Huberman Goggins podcast?
No,
Dude.
But I feel like I gotta get on that.
It's so good. I kind of got a little burnt out from Goggins because it was just like he can be a lot. But that one's great because Huberman like kind of grounds all of it into like the neuroscience side of things, which is cool. But there's a part, and I can't remember, it's like some really long scientific name, but there's a part of our brains that when we do something that we don't want to do, which is relative to each one of us, subjective, that it gets bigger, it grows. And in obese people, they have the smallest part of that part of their brain is smaller than the rest of the population. Or people who are unhealthy, people that are physically unfit, that part of their brain is the smallest. And in athletes, it's the biggest. And it's because you're constantly doing something that you don't want to do, and you work through it, you figure out how to get through it, you understand that, oh, I can do hard things. I can do this. I have the confidence to do it. I'm capable. And it translates to everything else in life too.
It's everything. And it shows up in like the food choices. You know, do I need to go to McDonald's? I just went on a 6-mile run. I can say no to that. And what else can you say yes to? And it starts by saying yes to hard things. And where my work comes in is for the people who are like me, where like you can't even go do the hard things because the hard things put you on a couch for 2 weeks, you know? So it almost feel like who I was 10 years ago. It feels weird talking about being in a state of disability and chronic pain because I'm so far removed from that young man that it just feels like I'm talking about somebody else now. And I remember so wholeheartedly like the mental state deterioration of like feeling trapped in my body and not being able to do stuff. And this is why I do my work, is to give people those outs, because I think there's so many people who hear that and agree to that and are like, yeah, and I also can't get out of the cat. Like I'm broken. And to not be able to use your body as that vehicle to process emotions and say yes to hard stuff, man, that's a hard place to be.
Yeah. And there's definitely plenty of people out there like that.
Yeah, a lot.
Yeah.
Most, man. It's most.
Yeah. Whether it's an injury or, years of inactivity or a disability you were born with, like some of those things are so out of your control. And that's where, you can go through therapy. You can do things like that. If you literally cannot physically go do these things. I guess that's a good question for you. Like if somebody is incapable of doing an ultra marathon right now to get to that point you did mentally, what advice would you have for them to either get there, or say they're like, again, they have a disability or something and they literally can't? Maybe this is a question for like a therapist or something.
Yeah, no,
I don't know.
You have to start with where you are. That's it. That's all you can do. You can't start with where I'm at. You can't start with where you're at. You can't start where Goggins is at. You gotta start with where you are, what your body can do, and use what you have. And for many people, that literally means, and I've laid down like literally step one for people who are in chronic pain. I put together like SOS, really simple routines that just give you something to do, man. Because most people in that state, they don't even have the tools to carve out what that first step is. Step one for you, your ultramarathon could be just saying yes to spending 10 minutes on the ground with your legs over a chair, because you probably don't want to do it, because you probably want to, you've just spent how much time and money and resources either renewing pain pill prescriptions like I was, avoiding your body, escaping, suppressing emotions, trying to just numb and distract yourself. And I'm going to go ask you to actually get back inside. And what do you feel? What are the things that you notice? That's a hard step one for a lot of people. And a lot of people come to my work, they are like, man, this is amazing. But they stop doing it because of what they have to feel when they actually show up and face their body. That could be your step one, which is just practicing getting into your body every day and feeling the things that are going on. And if that means you're feeling the problem, that's where this starts. That's you saying yes to the hard things. Is instead of pain only knows what to do when we like turn our attention from it, when we try to dominate it. It doesn't know what to do when we like allow it to be there and softly place attention on it and gentle focus. And that's what I ask people to start doing, because without that framework, we're just going to be avoiding the problem for years. So for those people out there who are literally feeling trapped and stuck, step one is like, go to my website, painacademy.net, try a free routine for me and have that be your lifeline, your SOS. I don't want anything from you other than for you to say yes from the moment you're hearing this podcast for the next 7 days. Do it every single day. And that's your ultramarathon right now. And I need you to figure out who you have to become to say yes to yourself every day. Do you need to get better at setting boundaries in your personal life? Do you need to tell your kids, not now, I have to take care of myself? Do you need to wake up a couple minutes earlier? Do you need to schedule time in your calendar, literally pencil it in for movement? Whoever you have to become, your first marathon is that first week of self-care. Let's start there.
I love that. That's a good, dude. You got some,
we're good.
You got some wisdom,
yeah,
dude.
We're getting
I
there,
love
man.
that.
Been doing it for a while, man.
Yeah, man. Is all of your stuff online, or do you do any one-on-one, like in person?
No. So it started out one-on-one in person, and I built up this incredible business, man. I was doing 240 sessions a month. That's 60 sessions a week. That's
Jeez.
either 5 days of 12 appointments or 6 days of 10. It was wild. So much. And there was variation within each session because everybody came to me for different problems, but everybody's first year was the same. What are the basics? What are the positions that relax you? What are the positions that stimulate you? And how can somebody now use these tools every day? Everybody's first year was the same. And this is what gave birth to my online program, because instead of paying me one-on-one to teach you this information and you flying out to see me, or us trying to do it over Zoom, which like we could do, here's a program. Let me show you how to do this every day. So I shut down my one-on-one business to make this information more accessible, because corrective exercise specialists could be like $250 an hour. Some guys are charging $500 an hour to restore movement impairments. So instead of giving me that one-on-one, go try my online program. And literally, it's like I'm in your house every day. Open up your computer or phone, just hit play and learn and follow the steps, step by step, for a year.
That's amazing. You can have a much bigger impact that way as well. Like, you can reach more people. You can change more lives, I think.
Yeah. And that was, ultimately that was the vision. When I when I first came across what I now teach people was some 5-ish years after breaking my back. 5 years of chronic pain and disability. And the thing that worked was never once recommended by an expert. Posture therapy? What the hell is that? I thought, what, I just have to sit up taller to get out of pain? I didn't even understand what posture meant. And when I first had a posture therapy session and somebody changed the positionality of my body through gentle, simple exercises, they didn't touch me. There was no invasive adjustment or procedure. Like, they showed me how to positionally change function. I remember standing up for the first time in my life where, like, I drove the results. I was the one who put in the work and I felt better. Shit, I can do this tonight when I get home. I'm going to do it tomorrow morning. I was so elated and I had so much hope and so much anger. Why is this shit not mainstream? Why don't people know about this? Okay. Step 1, I need to heal my body and learn more about this. And step 2, I need everybody in the world to have access to this, that I can make this available. So having a one-on-one business, having this be the Vinny show, was not my true intention of this business. And that's what it turned into. My intention was to have, I mean, it'd be great if this was the first thing recommended, but I think you actually have to go through a lot of what doesn't work before you finally get to, oh, I'm missing me. I'm missing me learning how to participate in my own rescue. That's the missing piece. Now let me go invest into the tools and the time to build my own self-care system myself. I think people need to go through all the bullshit to get to the point of, like, what do I actually need that I can sustainably rely on? I can't give myself a deep tissue massage. Maybe I can do some with foam rollers. I for sure can't give myself my own adjustment. I can't do effective acupuncture on myself. What are the modalities that I can do daily that are self-driven? And this is what I teach people. I empower them to do that.
I love that. What's your opinion on some of those things like foam rolling and the massage guns and the, what do they call, like the Normatec compression boots and the ice baths and all these kind of like mainstream, I don't want to call them gimmicks because I think some of them might work, but yeah. What's your opinion on some of that stuff?
They're tools, and each tool has a purpose. No doubt, foam rollers relax the excitability of overused muscles and help calm down that nervous system and improve blood flow. No doubt, massage guns do the same. No doubt, ice therapy, ice baths help to put yourself in a sympathetic state, which invigorates a hormonal, like, no doubt these things have an effect. And the common denominator in all of them is they are something outside of yourself to elicit an internal response. You are still missing you. You are still missing your brain and your central nervous system's capacity to communicate and regulate function to your muscles. You are still missing how your brain organizes and communicates movement. We don't think muscle by muscle. If you were to, and I were to go on a run, you wouldn't think hip, then glute. Then you think patterns, movement, forward drive. All of those therapy tools are great, and I mess around with all of those, but none of them are designed to replace the work that's needed of you showing up and you learning how to effectively and efficiently move your body every day. They can be great aids, but what happens with most people is they now become the crutch to feel okay. And now we are self-reliant on these things, to where, as if I didn't have a foam roller or a massage gun, I'd fall apart. So we have to look at them as tools to do a job. And each tool goes after maybe a different component of our physiology. And we still have to spend that time every day, man. We can't avoid it. No matter how sexy and cool these products are, no matter how great these influencers are who use these things, we cannot be tricked and seduced into thinking now we are just absolved of the work it really takes.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the answer I was kind of hoping for.
Oh, good. I was hoping you wouldn't say, this is where I've got a foam roller partnership and these things fix everything, you know?
No, if they help you, great. This is what I tell, people I coach, or anytime people ask, like, if foam rolling seems to just make you feel amazing, then foam roll. But I don't think you need to foam roll. I don't think you need to sit in compression boots for 30 minutes every night. Like if it helps, great. But it's not sustainable, I don't think. And there's something like there's some root cause that probably needs to be solved if you're having to do that every single day to feel normal.
Yeah. And so the harder and deeper parts of that are the first part, the most available. If you're having to foam roll every day to feel okay, good. I'm happy that you have something that you have figured out that you can do to feel better. But why do you need to? What is with your movement that is excessively placing load on these muscle groups and not dispersing load throughout your entire body? And maybe the answer is as simple as you're a runner and your calves and your quads experience way more impact forces than other areas. Great. Foam rolling can help mitigate that. But you working on restoring neuromuscular control, you learning how to relax that internally is going to give you more bang for your buck day over day. And the harder, and this could be an entirely separate podcast on its own, is when you spot treat, like maybe somebody has to foam roll that inner left groin or that right Achilles calf. Okay, you're picking and choosing now which muscles you are using compressive force to elicit an inhibitory response. So you are saying, I'm going to push on this muscle because it's tight and overactive, so I'm going to use mechanical pressure to relax it. Well, what if your body needs that muscle to be tight because your movement is so compromised? That's why it's tight. Your body isn't stupid. It's not saying, let's just go have tight muscles for I don't know, we got nothing else to do. It's tightening up to protect and prevent and reduce injury. Your nervous system is making trillions of calculations a second. If you go touch a hot stove, before that information even goes to your brain, oh my God, that's hot. Your body makes that information and that judgment for you to protect you. So when you have irregular motion, your body is calculating, oh, this is an unsafe, uncontrollable motion. It will do something called muscle guarding, which is it will tighten up some areas more than others to protect the system. And now you are kind of playing God with that system. And you're saying, no, I'm going to outthink you, body who's had hundreds of thousands of years of evolution and design on it. I know better than you. I'm going to spot treat it and relax this muscle. Well, how long until that muscle gets tight again? And people might notice foam rolling feels good initially right after, and they might actually get more flared up because what was tight was the only thing protecting their lower back or their neck or their shoulder or their hip joint. And you've actually artificially have removed that layer of protection because somebody told you that's tight, or you now associate that's tight, that's bad, that's wrong, versus, oh, this muscle's tight. What is it telling me? What am I missing? So when you start to like spot treat the body, you're like doing something to some muscles, but you're not foam rolling every muscle, not nearly with the same intensity. How are you actually perpetuating this problem? And most people, because we're spot treating issues, we are actually creating the thing that's holding us away, holding us back long term. And that's a harder conversation to have because people will disagree with it. But no, foam rolling makes me feel better. But you also, what happens when you stop?
Yeah.
It's a much deeper conversation, and it's one that requires a lot of reflection and emotional work because you might resist a lot of it initially.
So say somebody does have a really tight lower back or a really tight hamstring or IT band or something, rather than foam rolling or blasting it with a massage gun, what kind of things would you recommend? And I'm sure it's subjective to each movement or each part, but like generally speaking, I guess.
What is subjective is what that person's feeling. What is subjective is what things they are doing to create that, right? Personal and unique to them, their movement patterns, the ways that they can't move and the way that they are is moving. That's all subjective to them. But what is objective is taking a step back and asking the bigger picture, why? Why is your lower back tight? Well, let's take a look. And this is what I teach people. This is like step one of my program is assessment, because if we're not assessing, we're guessing. You cannot just chase what you feel, because what you feel can be wrong. How many times do we feel anxious and there's not really anything to feel anxious about, but that feels real? We have to understand that we have normalized suboptimal. Most people ignore their bodies until there's a problem. So when there's a problem, that's all we place attention on. You can only feel what you can feel. What you can't feel is what you can easily see. So step one in my program is not having people chase what they feel. It's taking a step back and taking photos of simple movements. What does it look like when you're standing up? What does it look like when you bend forward? How do you stand on your right leg? How do you stand on your left leg? What does your body do when you do these things? Because that's where we get to go into deeper understanding of why. Oh, your IT band is tight. Not because your IT band is just giving you the middle finger. Look at how tight your IT band is because your left foot is slightly pronated and slightly everted, and that left knee is slightly valgus. It's slightly collapsing inward. No wonder why that left hip is having to increase its tension, because it's trying to prevent you from getting injured. Your IT band is not the problem. Your movement pattern is the problem. Your IT band is just reacting to the problem. Your IT band might be the only thing actually keeping you out of injury. It's not the problem, but what we feel becomes the fall guy. So step one is getting out of this subjectivity of only what you can feel and what you think and what you've been told the problem is, taking a step back and just removing yourself from the problem, looking at photos of your body, and man, it is eye-opening what a picture will tell you. And we all have this technology. This isn't some $2,000 MRI process. This is like, hey, are your shoulders level? Is your pelvis level? Is the right side in the same position as the left side of your body? Are both knees pointed forward? Are both feet pointed forward? Is there any rotation in joints of your pelvis? What the hell is going on in your body? Because that's why you're feeling what you feel. Does that make sense?
No, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the assessment, yeah, because then from there it's like, okay, you can find the root problem, hopefully.
Yeah.
And then adjust from there. That makes perfect sense. I'm really curious to hear, well, actually, before I talk about strength training, what's your take on static stretching? Just like sitting, holding the pose.
It's useful, not in its outcome. It's useful in how you're able to learn how to use static stretching to regulate your breath and function. So let me walk back here. When you do a static stretch, you hold a muscle at a length it's probably not used to, and that increases a flexibility response, right? A stretch reflex. Holding a muscle at a greater length, it can help. It's far more effective to do dynamic movement, to take that muscle to length and then contract, lengthen, contract, relax, contract. That will give you a better outcome. But where static stretching can be valuable is you learning how to relax into discomfort, not to static stretch with a face grimace and you lose your breathing and you're now, because of a stretch, eliciting a sympathetic response. The value of static stretching is to use that pain and discomfort to practice leaning into discomfort with your nervous system, to put yourself in a position where you feel a stretch, and then learning how to breathe and learning how to relax your face and your jaw and your tongue, and to show your nervous system that length is safe and comfortable. Most people will stretch and they're just resisting what they're feeling. It's grossly ineffective because it doesn't really give you a great outcome. All static stretching will really do is allow you to spend more time dealing with those overexcitable nerves. But how you spend that time is going to be the thing that will make static stretching a hell yes beneficial or grossly ineffective. There are certain positions that I teach people to do static stretching with. Zach Bitter's one of them. When I helped him rehab a stress fracture, I had him sit upright against the wall with his legs straight out, flexing his quads and pulling his toes back. So a sitting upright L position, a static stretch. I didn't give that to him for length. I gave that to him so he can get back into his body and understand he can lengthen these muscles and learn how to breathe in that discomfort. World record holder, I'm teaching how to breathe in discomfort. The value of static stretching is how you parent yourself and what your breathing pattern is while stretching. If you want to really improve range of motion, that is going to be done through active, dynamic, controlled movement.
How often do you static stretch?
I'm pausing because I'm thinking about the last time I did it. Rare.
Yeah.
It's rare. So now we get into bang versus buck, right?
Yeah.
Here's where static stretching can be very helpful. If you're anything like me and movement is painful, well, static stretching is a hell yes, because now you're not recruiting nerves and muscles to move. That could be really painful for you. So giving somebody who has a very severe movement disability or movement impairment a static stretch could actually be more beneficial than dynamic movement, because dynamic movement triggers them. So removing motion and giving somebody a static stretch and isometric strength, and studies are very clear, isometric strength can be an incredible way to strengthen muscle groups, especially, man, when movement sucks for you. If movement hurts, isometric and static stretches are going to be your best friend until your body can become more capable, and then dynamic mobility and dynamic strength can now be a part of the equation. I don't static stretch anymore because it now comes down to time. Movement doesn't hurt. I'm going to get more bang for my buck and value out of dynamic movement than I will just holding and not moving. My value is now going to be in recruiting many different muscles and improving that synchronicity, not in just stopping.
That makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
If somebody has an injury, like let's say like a pulled muscle or something, what kind of, maybe let's start with the pulled muscle, because I know that can be really common with runners.
Yeah.
Maybe pull a hamstring or a calf, or I don't know, you're lifting and pull your lower back or something. What kinds of things can you incorporate to help heal that?
A muscle has 3 jobs. Job 1 is to contract and shorten. Job 2 is to relax and lengthen. Job 3 is to hold and stabilize. Any musculoskeletal, any muscle that is about movement, I'm not talking like involuntary, like paracelsus, digestion. So any muscle that aids us in actual locomotion has those 3 jobs. Typically, when there's a strain, it's not because of overuse, because why is the other side not strained? Most people will pull a hammy. Most people will pull a side of their lower back. The other side was doing the same damn activity. So we have to understand the muscle that was pulled lost 1, 2, or 3 of those jobs. It either couldn't contract and you're asking it to repetitively and it freaks out, spasms. It either couldn't relax and lengthen because it's so chronically tense. I'm talking about altered length tension relationships. You're going into the activity with a muscle imbalance, and that muscle doesn't have the ability to relax. So you now doing high repetitive loads, forcing it to relax, it's going to give you the middle finger and say, hell no. Thus, you just pulled it. Now you're in a spasm. Or the muscle can't isometrically hold itself. So rehabbing a strain is to teach those 3 things. We have to get the muscle to relax, we have to get the muscle to contract, and we have to get the muscle to isometrically work and understand how to stabilize. And we can do those really effectively. We just have to look at what muscle is in a state of dysfunction. Step 1, we got to get it to relax. Like I just talked about at the whole start of the podcast. Come down to the ground, lay on your back, legs, hips and knees at 90 degrees. We can't even get that muscle to work if it's just in a spasm. Step 1 is relax. Step 2, can we get some gentle contraction and relaxation? Contract, relax. And step 3, let's get it to work again. And you can do this so simply. If you're a runner with an excessively chronically pulled hamstring, lie face down, so prone. Put your hands on your forehead and your body is face down. Both legs are straight out. Bring one knee to your butt. I'm sorry, one. It's going to be really hard to do. It's like I don't understand the body. Bring one heel to your butt. So a hamstring curl, just a single leg, a little bit of action. Contract it, and then knee extension. Bring the foot down and let it relax. And then the other side. Other side's probably fine. And then the strain. Contract, relax. And you're just having a conversation. And each gentle muscle movement gets blood, oxygen, and nutrients. We get to whisk away the damaged cells. We get to reduce the inflammation. Movement's medicine. We are just gently working on this soft tissue, one movement at a time. Movement is medicine, and we've got to find a way to get gentle motion back into this area.
How often, excuse me, how often would you do something like that? Or for how long would you do that for? If you had a pulled hamstring, we'll stick with that.
If you had a pulled hamstring, what is going to make this a different conversation is based on how pulled it is. So maybe somebody can only get in a few reps before it gets really painful. Okay, that's where we start. So this now comes down to volume. How can we I'd rather take a little dose, so maybe a minute of movement. It's not a lot. A minute of movement before things get a little haywire. Okay, do a minute a few times a day. And we might find that a few days of that, now we can do a minute and a half of movement. Now 2 minutes of movement. We are slowly crawling our way back into function again. Some people are going to find that the first minute feels gross. Oh my God, minute 2 and 3. Oh, I'm feeling a little bit better. The duration is always really hard because it depends on what you feel. But start off with a minute and then make a judgment call. Is it getting better with motion or worse with motion? If it's getting better, let's double. Let's do 2 minutes. Let's do 3 minutes. Hell, this might be the best that legs felt all day. Let's get 10 minutes in. And snapshot. How do you feel for the rest of the day? Do you feel infinitely better, or did things get actually tighter? You might have crossed a line somewhere in that 10-minute threshold, which is why I always recommend starting off with 1 minute. Even if it feels easy, do it. Take a break. See how you feel for the next hour or two. How did your body deal with that? Sometimes with strains or pulled sometimes with sprains or strains, we don't really get immediate feedback. Like we could go on a run and feel okay in that run. And then, oh my God, dude, later that day, it feels terrible. You crossed a threshold somewhere on that run. So we've now got to next time look at that run. Well, you did an hour and your body freaked out 12 hours later. Why don't we now try 30 minutes? Do you still have that same freak out? Where is that fine line in the sand for you? And this now just comes down to dose. We all need a different dose of medication, a different dose of movement. Let's start off with some structure. Let's start off with a minute. Is that dose enough to make a change? Some people it's too much. Some people it's not enough. From there, can we do more based on your response?
I'm really curious to hear your take on strength training and what your routine looks like, especially for, obviously most people listening to this podcast are probably runners training for a marathon, half marathon, ultramarathon. What does your strength training for runners routine kind of look like?
Yeah, so strength training for running is, and I'm going to give you the answer because I've got pretty good function. If you don't have good function, the answer is going to change. So let's just say you've got a great capacity to move. My focus on the gym is strength training in ranges of motion that I lose when I just run. So running, you're not taking the hips through full flexion and extension. Same thing with the ankles and the knees. It's short, tight, limited ranges. So when it comes time to strength train, I'm going to do full range squats, full range knee to the ground lunges. I'm going to be doing sumos and deadlifts. I want to get my hips and my ankles and my knees moving through ranges that are more than just running, because I don't want to become specialized runner where all I can do is running and anything outside of running I'm screwed on. I want to be well-rounded and versatile. So strength training is well-rounded. It's full range of motion. Nothing is isolated. I do not sit on a knee extension machine. I loathe machines unless you absolutely have to. If that's your only option, that's where you start. That's where you're at. This is about movement patterns. How can I get my body moving better? I will typically reserve days for unilateral work and days for bilateral work. I will seldom do single leg squats, pistol squats, or lunges on days that I will also do squats and bilateral movement. So I try to separate those movement patterns. Unilateral work tends to train the stabilizers a little bit more. Bilateral work, you don't get those little core stabilizers. You get the larger primary muscle groups. So when I do unilateral work, I'm doing it specifically for stability and range of motion. When I'm doing bilateral work, it's to lift the heavier weights and to go into more explosive, bigger movement patterns. I'm trying to offset what is not happening on the road.
How many days a week do you do that?
3. So I'm trying to run
Excuse
about, yeah, you're good. So 3 days of weight training feels really good for me. So 3 days of resistance work, 3 to 5 days of running. I'll do very short runs on the resistance days. My longer runs are in between the resistance days, and it's mobility almost every single day.
Is there a reason you split the lower body? Well, actually, before I ask that, so 3 strength sessions a week, are those all lower body?
They have a lower body focused, but it's more dynamic movement patterns. So I might do, to give you an example, I'll do a deadlift and then I will immediately superset it with like walkout inchworms. I will never just, 4 sets of 12 reps of deadlifts and then I'm doing nothing in that minute in between. I'm not training for hypertrophy. I'm not training for max strength. I'm training to maintain range of motion and quality of soft tissue structures. So I will do a harder or heavier lift and immediately do a full body dynamic mobility exercise right afterwards. That tends to help me focus on strength, and the mobility helps me maintain range. So I'm trying to accompany 2 different principles and philosophies within the same workout structured within that set.
What do your rep ranges look like in the sets?
6 to 12.
6 to 12.
Yeah, I never go lower than that. It's rare that I even go 6. 6 tends to, if I'm doing a rep range that's closer towards 6, it's a weight that would be hard to lift 7 or 8 times. I find that makes it harder to show up the next day for runs. It just fries that central nervous system a little bit more. So my sweet spot is more towards the 12 range. My endurance swimming days, man, I want to be in like the 20 to 30 rep range and nothing really meaningful happens.
Yeah.
I mean, it does, but that would be my go-to. So 12 is usually about where I hover.
Have you read any of the stuff on for distance running, doing like 3 to 6 reps for weight training?
Mm-mm.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Have you read the book, The Science of Running?
No.
I'm almost done with it. It's really good, but it's like it's kind of textbooky, but like dives all into the science of running, as you'd expect. But one thing that he talks about in there is like, there's almost a misconception or like a common belief that if you're training for running, high repetitions, I guess very repetitive sport, like you should strength train that same way of doing like 20, 30 reps to mimic what you're going to get in running. And I think the studies that he references says you actually get a lot more benefit from like 3 to 6.
Yeah, I believe that.
Just because I believe the way he talks about it is when you lift heavy like that, you increase the muscle fiber pool sizes. And then it's like when you're in an endurance event, you have more muscle fibers to recruit from, like late into a race, and the fastest and best way to increase those pool sizes is the heavier weights with lower reps.
Yeah.
But it's also like, what are you training for? What is your goal within those races? So I think that's where, I don't know. I personally feel better with like the lower reps, but again, it's subjective to each person, I think. And I find with the accessory movements like a box step up or a Bulgarian split squat or something a little bit more dynamic, that's where I like doing the higher reps, like 6 to 12. But then with the deadlifts or squats, that's where I'll go heavier with lower weights. But I don't know. Do you know much about that, or have you experimented with that?
I have experimented with it. My goal is, dude, I want to be that guy in their 50s and 60s running. I am 100% even though there's resistance here. I am 100% detached from performance and time. Races are great. I love the structure that races provide me. I don't think I'm going to do too many races in my life. I want to just be ultra run ready. And obviously that's a really hard thing to do. So I know that there's seasons of this stuff. I keep the higher rep. When I lift heavier with lower weights, I feel more sturdy, right? I feel like I'm stronger on those runs, but my range of motion suffers. My movement outside of the gym and outside of running feels less capable. I feel like I can go lift a couch heavier, but the range of motion feels tighter. I noticed that getting into those deeper natural squat positions, a squat position for me is rest. There was a study done that shows when the muscles function, the same muscular activity at standing, the muscular activity is the same when squatting.
Oh, interesting.
When a squat becomes work, that's the first telltale sign that muscle imbalance has now entered the picture and things are having to work. A squat is a position of rest. And you look at most third world countries, people are squatting to rest. Yeah. Squatting is a break from standing. Most people in the Western world, squatting is a lot of work. So I noticed that when I stuck to the lighter rep range, heavier rep ranges, so shorter reps, those fundamental human movement patterns outside of lifting and running were harder, a little less accessible. When I upped the rep range to 12 or so, can't clearly lift as heavy for that, but it was almost like each repetition was about grooving and flossing movement. I am sacrificing strength. I am sacrificing endurance of running. I'm sacrificing time. I'm sacrificing the resilience towards those harder miles. I'm very clear on that. Me outside of a lifter and running feels better. And that's what I'm trying to play with. That's what I'm in the lab playing with, which is there an in-between where I can still optimally move like a human and maintain that strength range and maintain those strength for lower reps, higher weight? How can I do both? And I'm trying to be hybrid. I'm trying to be well-balanced. And that's hard, man. I don't have that figured out yet.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Yeah, because it's like, I mean, it's probably a question I should ask myself. It's like, what's going to matter more in 50 years?
Yeah.
How well I can move when I'm 75, or the time that I ran in the marathon when I was 26. It's like, what's more important in the long term?
Yeah.
So
and that's a question we all got to ask. And when people come to me wanting to run, my first question is not how fast do you want to run it. It's like, do you want this to be your only one?
Yeah.
Like, do you want to do this once? Or do you want this to be like your identity? And what I teach people is these like basic movement assessments. Those are my North Star. If what I'm doing helps me bend forward and squat and stand on one leg and the other, I know I'm maintaining optimal movement. The second those basics are lost, given the experience I have, it's now a question of, well, how sustainable is this? And I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah. I think most runners, I know I for sure do, have very stiff ankles, which inhibits my squat quite a bit. So usually if I'm back squatting or front squatting, I'll like elevate my heels, put them on plates or something. I want to get away from that for the like functional, like longevity purposes, because I want to be able to just like pop down into a squat, no issues, and like it feels comfortable. What things would you recommend to people, me probably specifically, of like improving ankle mobility and getting better at sitting in a squat comfortably?
Yeah, great question. There are a lot of ways to enter this, and it just depends on how aggressive we want to be with it. So let's get clear on what's missing. So first of all, I love the workaround, missing ankle dorsiflexion range of motion. You elevate the heels to still train really deep squat and hip ranges of motion. I love that. I think that is a great way to still focus on strength. And let's also try to problem solve that so we can move closer towards doing squats with a flat level foot the whole time. Instead of just cranking and holding stretches until the freaking cows come home, here's what I want you to do. I want you to lie on your back with a chair out in front of you. And so you're lying on your back, your legs are on a couch. Your legs are straight, so your heels are on a couch. Straight legs lying on your back. Put a foam roller or a yoga block between your feet, right? So the yoga block has two straight edges. Your feet are going on the outside of those two straight edges. So nothing's twisted, nothing's misaligned. Everything is like nice and aligned. And all I want you to do is pull back those feet and hold it for 10 minutes and just watch what happens. I want Jeremy's brain to have a conversation with these muscles that you can pull back. You are going to go through a whole roller coaster of, why is this so freaking, I can run 50 miles. Why can't I just talk to these muscles for 10 minutes? You're going to have the same internal dialogue that Zach Bitter had when I helped him rehab. Before we did movement, can we just talk to these muscles? Before you go cranking on ranges of motion, remember, your body has stiff ankles, not randomly. The last thing you want is to go radically maximize ankle range of motion. You're not going to know how to control that range. The knee is not going to know how to stabilize that range. The hip is not going to know how to stabilize that range. You could be setting yourself up for a really gnarly next funky injury. So I want to first show you how to make dorsiflexion safe and available and accessible. So you're going to just do your foot pullback for 10 minutes and talk to these muscle groups. We're not pulsing. I don't care about motion. I care about neuromuscular communication and efficiency. Watch what happens to your body, and where that work starts to happen. You might feel your hips more than your feet and ankles. It is such a game-changing diagnostic tool and a great exercise. Let's start there.
Interesting. While you were saying that, I was just sitting here, like trying to basically like pull my toes up, like dorsiflexion. Dude, 30 seconds in, it's already burning.
Yeah.
10 minutes. That's so long.
10 minutes. It's so long, and it's a start.
Yeah.
And it's a start. And you're probably going to notice one foot pulls back nice, and you're pulling from the inner edge of the arch of the other foot. So you're like kind of supinating. Well, when you actually get that foot to pull back straight, dude, you're going to feel everything in your leg why you can't dorsiflex. You're going to feel the root cause of that. And that's not a forever prescription. That's let's just start to understand this problem now. That could be step one. Ultimately, what we have to ask is it a mobility problem or a stability problem? Right? And this goes back to assessments. Do you actually have good dorsiflexion? Like, could I come over there right now and with you, without moving, could I actually move your ankle to a good level of dorsiflexion? If you have the range of motion, but now when it comes time to squat, you're like, it's stiff and tight. It's not immobility. It's nervous system. You don't have the stability. You don't have the muscle tone to actively move that joint, so your nervous system short circuits and you freak out. If you have the mobility and it's a stability issue, that pullback is going to be great. If you do have, like, if you do that pullback, man, and it's easy and you're like, this is an utter waste of my time, you have stability, you have strength, you literally just don't have the joint mobility. So then I'd probably take a little bit more of an aggressive, let's go get that ankle to open up a little bit more.
If it's more of the latter and you lack the joint mobility rather than the stability, where would you go from there?
If you're lacking joint mobility, you are still lacking stability, right? Because your joint has not moved to this range of motion, which means you can't control it. So it is still a little bit of a conversation of, we've got to improve mobility, and we also have to do stability. But you could do this really simply. Go buy a slant board and stand on an uphill slant surface, right? So your toes are uphill, heels are closer towards the downhill, and literally use your body weight to pull yourself into more ankle mobility and dorsiflexion. Now that's static, and it's you just trying to manage that overwhelm of what all that nervous system sensation feels like. So step one could be Jeremy just spending 3 minutes a day in a deep dorsiflex loaded position. Step two, once that becomes more available, go into that uphill position and now start to do some calf raises, some heel lifts. So you're actively taking yourself into that deep range and out, in and out. And now your brain, we're dealing with stability and immobility simultaneously. Damn effective.
I gotta get a slant board.
You gotta get a slant board.
Is there a specific one you'd recommend, or does it matter?
No, just go, you know, I like the slant boards where it's just like a slant board in the top. I don't like the ones where the top overhang it, because then like your shins run into it. So
yeah.
if you go online, just Google search, go to Amazon, just type in slant board. Most of them are going to work for you.
Okay, I got to get one of those. Do you do a lot of the ATG, like knees over toes? What is his name? Ben Patrick?
No.
None of that?
No.
Do you not believe in it? Or I don't know much about it, but it seems to be very trendy.
Okay, so I'm gonna first take the stance as I have not done their system, so I don't know the inner workings of progression and regression. So I'm speaking from a place of observing this on the outside. And my observation on the outside is the same problem I had with movement therapy for years. We are bringing a dysfunctional body into exercise that strengthen and mobilize the body. We are strengthening the problem and we are mobilizing the problem. If somebody has a knee issue because there is a hip disparity, one hip can flex, extend, or rotate better than the other hip, and we are now doing ATG deep lunges, you're going to get stronger. You're going to improve range of motion. It is going to elicit a very fast change. If you were to compare my method and his, you're probably always going to choose his method if you're an athlete, because like it's quick, it's fast, it's immediate. You feel something happening. What I have to imagine happens is now you've destabilized a movement impairment, you've strengthened a movement impairment, you are going to fortify the tissue for some time. But how long? How long will that work for you? And maybe it buys you a couple months, maybe it buys you a couple years, maybe you have the best decade of your life because you've introduced this high stimulus, big strength and range of motion, throwing the knees so far, like hell yeah. But how are you compensating to do that? Is it that you've figured out how to get that by elevating the pelvis a little higher? Is it going more anterior on the left side? Is it offsetting the trunk and rotating the ribs and elevating a shoulder, tilting? How are you accomplishing that range? And now let's take a step back. Whenever I see any movement modality in therapy that has the sexy, flashy stuff, that is the first red flag. Stay away from it, because it glorifies range. It glorifies, it doesn't glorify how we get to that range. It's just look at the depth, look at the strength. And I am about longevity. I don't want somebody to be great in their 30s, man. I want somebody to be badass in their 50s and 60s, because nobody wants to stop doing the things that they love doing. So maybe my opinion would change if I tried it and I saw a very reasonable part of that program that addresses neuromuscular inefficiency. But most things are just sexy and attractive and like, how do we make it easy, digestible? And that's great. Yeah. But long term, where does it take us?
Yeah. I don't know how I feel about all that stuff. I've never like done any of the programs, so I can't like speak from experience. But it might work for people, whatever. But it seems like
for sure is doing something for a lot of people.
Yeah. It just seems like the like you said, the flashy, trendy, like this new wave of whatever it is, it usually is a trend for a reason.
Yeah.
And that might not be the case with the knees over toe stuff. I don't know. But it just seems like in the fitness space, there's so much of that.
Yeah.
And it's just like, just go back to the basics. Like put your feet up on a chair. Like you said, like that's so simple. People probably been doing that for thousands of years. I don't know.
Yeah. It always goes back. It always goes back to the basics, man. can the right side work like the left? Do the muscles in the front of the body work like the muscles in the back? And dude, it's corrective exercise 101. And this is like National Academy of Sports Medicine corrective exercise programs. They compiled a lot of the latest and greatest studies and research, and they found this step one that most people are missing is this down regulation part. So if you're part of a program and it's like, bam, right off to the races, get to work, you're going to feel a change fast, but you're probably missing the depth that you need to resolve this problem long term.
Yeah. How many people do you, so it's not one-on-one anymore.
Mm-mm.
How many people, if you're willing to share, do you serve, I guess, in some way?
Yeah. So cumulatively, it's about 10,000 plus people worldwide. Dang. And they're just, everybody's got different start points, different adherence levels. Some people are deeply committed for a couple months, take 6 months off and then come back. It's like this ebb and flow of about 10,000 people worldwide.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Dang. And
it's a lot.
What does it cost to like go through the program? And I'm sure there's different packages and tiers and stuff, but
yeah. So basic cost is $2,000 a year. So it's $2,000 for access. Sometimes we have promotions and sales, but on average pricing is $2,000 a year or $200 a month. And this program is designed to minimally last a year, and everybody goes through the same program, but no two people go through it the same way. My team and I have built an algorithm based on which exercises and where on that intensity spectrum is most helpful for you. The program is going to start to cater itself based on what helps you move and feel your best. So you could have the same problem as a runner as another runner, and your programs are going to look entirely different based on why you have that problem and what's more effective. So this thing takes shape as you learn and participate what actually helps your body move and feel its best.
Is this all through an app, or is it through like a website or a software?
It's web-based. We're working on an app.
Nice.
As of this point, to go app-based, we would have had to lose a lot of the coaching, hand-holding functionality of the full-blown website. So just until recently, as apps have gotten better, we would have had to get rid of a lot of the features that our members are like vitally relying on for their SOS stuff.
Yeah, that's hard.
Yeah, very hard.
Interesting.
So we're moving towards an app.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It's snail space.
Dude, getting an app built, not easy.
Bro, I thought what it would take to be great would be to be a master of the body. Now it doesn't matter. Do you know how to do an app? Do you know how to build it? What's the usability? What's the user design and user experience? I don't know any of that stuff, man. And so this is like, I've had to build a team around me of people who are very competent with this stuff, because I don't know how to go build an app. You bring a movement problem to me, I'm going to tell you how to do it.
Yeah.
But I don't know how to build an infrastructure online. So this is where it's taking a meeting of two completely different skill sets have got to come together.
How big is your team altogether?
Core team, about 8 people.
Nice.
Yeah, core team of 8.
And this Pain Academy, this is like your thing. You started this.
This is my baby from day one.
When did you launch this originally?
It's changed names and corporate structures over the years. I mean, this thing was technically started in like 2015. It became Pain Academy in early 2017. So we've been operating under Pain Academy for about 7 years.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Before it was called the Posture Movement, and that's not hot.
Not as exciting.
Yeah. It's just not as exciting.
Pain Academy. It reminds me of Squat University.
Yeah. Dude, I had Move Me. And then I'm like, you know what? Let's do Move You. And then that got taken literally a day after I thought of that. So kudos on those guys for swapping that.
Dang. Yeah. That's awesome. Dude, well, you're obviously like incredibly knowledgeable about this stuff.
Thanks, man.
And I know it's like a long time. It's like one of my favorite sayings is the overnight success took 10 years.
Yeah.
And it's like you've been doing this for decades.
Yeah.
And it's so cool that you're like having this big impact on tens of thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people on Instagram and across other social platforms. So I love it, man. I just love and I can tell you're passionate about this stuff. Like I love when people find that thing that they're passionate about and they like go all in on it, and you have this big impact on the world and you're helping all these people. I just love that.
Thanks, man.
That's so cool.
My North Star is to be the coach and make the program that I needed when I was going through hell. And everything that I do is in an effort to be what I needed. Maybe a little self-serving, but it's serving a lot of people.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's where any good business starts.
Yeah.
Is like, I mean, that's why we created an electrolyte product, because I didn't like any of the other ones. So I was
Yeah,
like, let's
that's
make
right.
something that I want to use.
Yeah.
That's have you read the Steve Jobs biography?
Mm-mm.
Oh, it's really good. But that was like when they were creating Apple, even all the way up until Steve Jobs passed away. Like every product that they came out with was something that a bunch of computer nerds just wanted for themselves that nobody else figured out how to make. And like, this would be sick. Let's make it. And then like, well, if we like it, other people probably want it too. So we'll sell it.
It's just that simple.
Yeah.
You know, I had to imagine that, man, if I was dealing with this problem and none of my friends, like, I mean, they knew about the initial injury, but dude, I suffered in silence. How many freaking people, dude? And the interesting thing is, like, when you're a member and you go through this program and you learn about your body, you now can't unfeel things. You can't unsee things. And then you see the world around you. And you see that person who's spending more time on their right leg when they walk, the person who's swinging their left arm more than their right arm, and how they're just like struggling to get from point A to point B. And you realize it's all, dude, it's everybody. And I think why this thing has taken off is because you can't go through this program and intimately learn about yourself and then see a family member you groaning when they bend forward and be like, hey, me too, but not anymore. Let me show you. You can't hear about somebody's pain and hear them, yeah, I'm doing these drugs and I'm doing this. And they're just like, try this. Let me show you what Vinny showed me. And then they stand up and like, it's spreading because it's works and you can't see other people no longer suffer.
Yeah.
It's cool.
What is so these programs, like what does kind of like a typical week look like for somebody on there?
Yeah. So every, so obviously every week is different based on what your program and structure is. But it's you logging into the program, you looking at the day of the week it is, what your movement sequence and routine is for that day, you clicking play. It's like a follow me along. So you just hit play once and I guide you. I hold the structure, the time, the tempo. And when you're done with your routine, you hit complete and then it prompts a feedback. Hey, what did you feel here? How did this exercise go? Did your assessments change? Do you feel better? Do you feel more, it's just what was the outcome of this? And as you're giving feedback and response, we're collecting this information and then using it to the algorithm to then change next week's program. So it's just you showing up, participating every day and fine tuning it. I have to start small, 15 to 25 minutes a day with people. And then as I figure out, and as the algorithm figures out what helps people move and feel better, some people who really need it, we got to go into the hour-long routines. But not everybody needs that. So it keeps them short and shallow, 15, 25 minutes. And then as people go through it, we start to add on strength and mobility, and we start to really jump up the intensity spectrum as any natural progressive overload of a program does.
Nice. So it does have strength training and like weightlifting and all that stuff in there?
It doesn't have low resistance training.
Okay.
It has you manage your body. So it's like body weight squats, lunges, like bear crawls, walking forward, backward lunges. It has you more doing like movement calisthenics. How can you just manage your body? Because I have to get you to do that before you even think about adding more load to your body.
Yeah.
If your body is stressed out and doesn't move well, the last thing I want you to do is go add more stress and load to a body that is already having mechanical failure. So I've got to teach you how to manage your own body weight first. Push-ups, even just like walking lunges, basic stuff, man. We've got to master that shit first, and then we can get to the fun stuff. But I don't teach the weight. I teach the movement mechanics and the restoration. And I trust that when people are done with my program and then they want to start adding in, maybe it's a CrossFit or a group class or spin class, like then they can get more versatile. Come to me to restore it and then go be free and do the things that you love doing.
What does the average person look like? Like what's the average? Is it like an injury that they're going through, or is it like a genetic inhibitant, or like what would you say the average person is?
This is the really hard thing, man. People. I don't have a demographic. The demographic is anybody with a human body who wants to learn how to move and feel better. So most people are either chronic movement impairments, just over time their body has stopped feeling good. I've got some people who it's impact, car accident, a fall, something broke, catastrophic traumatic injury like mine. I've got some people who have had hip replacements or surgical cages and fusions where their body can't move. And now we've got to get the rest of their body to work better. There are people with congenital issues, birth defects, deformations. I've got amputees, people who, and this is of the smaller percentage, but you being able to talk to muscles and getting them to work better, it's only going to help in most scenarios. So it all comes back down to improving your capacity to move as a human.
I love that. It's a little bit of everybody.
Yeah, and that's what makes it really hard to talk about, because it's not back pain. It's not, it's like, dude, you don't feel good if your movement feels off. Come here, I got you.
Yeah, it's so subjective too.
Very.
Yeah.
But if I really had to answer that, back pain and hip pain.
Really?
Yeah.
Those are the two biggest?
Yeah, from muscle imbalances, back pain and hip pain.
Back pain and hip pain. What about with runners? Like, do you have a lot of runners on there? And do you see like
it's starting to, man,
common threads with people?
Yeah. I think just my natural venture into ultra running and then getting on Zach, having him as a client, getting on his podcast and radar, it's attracted a lot of runners. It's really the same stuff, man. It's Achilles tendonitis, it's medial knee pain or lateral knee pain, really tight IT bands, and just general lack of a capacity to move. They become so hyper specialized in running that getting them to do any of my basic movements is like this bewildered, I can run 100 miles. Why can't I move my foot like this? It's very humbling and checking. So just your basic common running injuries.
Yeah, I feel like runners are so stubborn. I know I am. And I feel like so many runners are, that's all they want to do is run. They don't want to do anything else.
Yeah, that's all they want to do. And I so badly want you to understand, I'm with you. I hear you. And to help you go do that, let me show you how to do that long term.
Yeah.
That's the mindset that we got to have with it.
Yeah. I love that, dude. For you personally, like, what do you have coming up? Do you have any races? You said you don't want to do a lot of races, but like events or
I've got a race.
Adventures?
So I've got a race on May 6th. It is the Avenue of the Giants Ultra. It's only half that. It's only a marathon. So I've got Avenue of the Giants Marathon.
Is that in the like Sequoia or is that it? Okay.
Dude, it's like the Redwoods.
That's going to be sick.
It's by Eureka, Humboldt, Trinidad County in Northern California. This is the third time I've done this race. I got a score to settle, man. The first time was my first marathon ever and my first race ever. I thought I was God's gift to running, and I ran by every aid station. I'm not weak. I don't need your Gatorade. Get out of here. I'm a beast. Bro. Mistakes were made.
That's hilarious.
The second time, I literally got like a divorce like a month before. So,
oh dang,
training, emotions. I went into that race not having ran for 3 weeks. It went as well as you could have thought. Not great. Oh, dude, it was, it's 6 miles out, 6 miles back, turn around, 6 miles another way, 6 miles back. Before I could even make it to the first turnaround, I'm like, I should probably not be here and stop. That voice came early. And so my score is to settle this time around. I've got a little bit of performance anxiety, having getting that food sickness and not running the ultra. It's a little harder for me to like get into the season. So I'm hoping the score is going to be settled in about a month from now there, but we might need to do a fourth time.
Dang.
Might be the charm.
That's it sounds like a sick race though.
I mean, for performance, man, it's mostly flat and it's in a canopy, so you don't have to deal with hot temperatures. Nice. It's been rainy and just like light drizzle every single time. Temperature regulated, like it's really nice if you're looking to run a fast marathon.
Yeah, I might have to check that out.
You got to check it out.
Yeah, one of my friends, I just had him on the podcast. He's like, man, I think I'm kind of done with races for a little bit. He's like, it's so expensive. You go and just do this thing. It's all about like getting the finish line photo and all that. He's like, I'd rather just go like run 50 miles through the mountains with like some friends.
Yeah.
And like kind of do your own adventure. And I'm like, that sounds like so much fun. Like races are fun. Don't get me wrong. It's a lot of fun, but I'm doing like 20 of them this year. I'm like, I want to just like go do it for the sake Like, go run for the sake of running.
Yeah, I was literally just talking about this yesterday on Zach's podcast, that having been in the best shape of my life for the last ultra, and then now, you know, taking some time out of the ultra season, as I think should probably be recommended, getting back into this marathon, there's so much comparison, and there's so much me looking at my watch every 30 seconds.
Yeah.
And, oh, this run wasn't hard 6 months ago and I'm dying on this run, that I'm like, because of the race, I'm forgetting why I'm doing this. And dude, I went on a run the other day without a watch and just my dog. And I remembered, oh, this is why I do this. And it wasn't about time. It wasn't about mileage. It wasn't about distance or pace. It was like, because I can. And it's amazing.
Yeah.
And I think this race on the horizon is putting this extra pressure to go do it in a certain way. And part of me just wants to go up there and run my own marathon and not even go to the actual race, but to just do it for me, because that's what this is about.
Yeah. Yeah, that dude running without a watch.
Ugh.
That's powerful. I don't know. I honestly don't know if I've done that before.
Try it. Take your dogs out and try it, and let me know what you think.
Scares me just thinking about
You can
it.
have you can have your fiance follow you in a car, so you can at least have some metrics of pace if you really need it. But try it if you ever are inclined to just mess around and find out.
Yeah. It's I think we all get caught in like what's your Strava weekly mileage at? And it's like, what's your next PR gonna be? Like what time are you gonna run in your next marathon? It's like, does it really matter?
Yeah.
Not really.
I mean, here's the thing, dude. I'm not going to the Olympics for running.
Yeah.
I'm not, going to Boston would be great. That'd be really cool. Maybe I'm just saying this because I'm really fucking slow. You know what? I'm going to call my own shit. I'm going to call myself out. Maybe I'm saying this because I'm just not fast guy. So this is like my deflective mechanism. But I also got to be real. Like I'm just not in the top of that. I've had that experience. I know what that world of athletics does, and that's great. And I want something more meaningful. And that's what running is to me. And so I have this like fantasy of me never wearing a Garmin again, never wearing a Pro HR strap to look at ground reaction force and ground contact time and uploading to Strava and sharing it with friends and just doing it alone and nobody knows.
Yeah.
I wonder what that feels like. And because then I'm doing it for me. I'm not doing it for my audience. I'm not doing the showboat. I'm not doing it for a medal. It's literally for nobody because nobody knows about it. I've got a friend that does that. He's still very performance-based, but he's never once shared one of his runs online.
Dang.
And that's attractive to me. I want to know what that feels like.
Yeah.
It's bewildering.
The lady that just won Barclays Marathon, did you follow that at all?
Mm-mm.
Do you know that race, the Barclay Marathons?
I know it's pretty gnarly.
It's nuts. But the lady that won it doesn't have an Instagram. I think she's just like a mom. I can't remember what she does for work, but just like kind of a random lady that just went out and ran. She didn't win it, but she was the first lady to ever finish, the first female. And
See, dude.
no Instagram, didn't do it for the clout. It's just like she found this race and just wanted to go do it. Basically, it's
I'm
like
fascinated by those people, dude.
Yeah.
They're just off the grid and they just show up and do it because they can.
Yeah.
And it's probably for them.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
It seems crazy to me because I do everything the opposite way. Everything's got to be on the internet.
If your listeners just never hear from you after this podcast, it's because we both went off the grid and went rogue.
Yeah. How often do you think about, if ever, just like getting rid of your phone, getting rid of social media, and just like going off the grid?
I struggle with this so much because social media is the link to my dream of helping people, and I hate it.
Yeah.
I loathe it. I am the last guy that takes pictures to remember things. I'm in the moment, man. I want a conversation to be right now with you, and you have my full attention, energy, and presence. It is like taking me out of the stream of life, and it does all the time, and it makes me I just don't like it, dude. And if I had it my way, I could have both. People would know and love this program. The world knows about it, and I don't have to. If your back hurts, try this one thing to help this thing, and oh, dude, but like that's, and maybe there's a better path. There's got to be, but I hate it.
Yeah.
I truly despise it. If you've ever seen me, this is a different probably Vinny than you probably get on social media, because I just get so weird. I hate it. It's weird, dude.
Yeah, I think everybody does though,
For sure.
because that's the problem is like when and I don't know what the solution would be, like if your business is run through social media, that's how, I mean, it's marketing.
Yeah.
You got to let people know about your
Yeah.
thing. And aside from making money and growing your business, like helping people, if that's a passion of yours, like it's like this catch-22 that you're
It
in.
is.
It's hard, and I don't know what the answer is, but yeah, like even this last weekend when I was at this Puma thing in Jamaica, sick experience. So
Yeah.
so like grateful I can go do that stuff. But I was with 50 other creator influencer people, and it was just everywhere we went, phones, selfies,
Yeah.
and it made me want to just throw my phone in the damn lake. I'm like,
Yeah.
I just want to like be here as a human and like experience it and not have to like post and take selfies. And it's just like, oh, I hate it. But I don't know.
I'm a part of, I was born in 88. So I was like probably one of the last like generations to like kind of grow up a little bit without a phone. I mean, I think I got one when I was like 14 years old, which I know is like now normal, but it was like
Yeah.
not a phone, dude. It was like a brick. It had nothing that we now have. And so like that's like that childlike playfulness and disconnect of just being in the world. I miss it and I love it. And I hope one day this thing grows to a point where it's not the Vinny show and I'm not the face of it, but like a team can run it for me. And I just don't have to be front face the messenger of it.
Yeah.
I want the work and the people who do the work to then just take over and be the message of this.
I love
It'd
that.
be lovely.
I love that, dude.
Yeah. And I get to focus on the stuff that I'm making a damn good program instead of hashtags, man. Hashtags and filters.
Yep. I feel that. I love that though, man. Like clearly you're a genuine, real person, and I like seeing people like you do well.
Thanks, man.
Because there's a lot of people
Likewise.
that you meet people on the internet, you meet people from the internet, and they're like, you're not what I expected.
Yeah.
And it just sucks, but
It gets weird.
Yeah.
It gets weird quick. But
Yeah.
man, I so appreciate you having me out here on this.
yeah, dude, thanks for coming out.
Yeah.
You're based out of LA.
Yep.
Are you gonna be in Austin again anytime soon?
I'm coming out again for a round 2 with you.
Oh, dude, let's
Yeah,
do
we
it.
gotta do it.
Let's do it.
We got a lot more to get into.
We got to get in a run and a lift. We got to do all the things.
Yeah, that voice won today a little bit.
Yeah.
So of not running, but next time we'll get into that.
That's okay. Yeah, we got to, we'll plan it out like where we can, maybe on like a Saturday or something, we
Cool.
can like do a whole thing.
That sounds great.
That'd be fun. I know we're both like crazy busy, but
Yeah.
we'll make something work.
We'll make it work.
Heck yeah.
Cool, bro.
Where's the best place for people to find you, connect with you?
So on social, it is at Pain Academy, whether it's like TikTok, Instagram, so much information on there. And then website is painacademy.net. I don't expect anybody to believe anything that I said today. I want them to feel it themselves. Go to painacademy.net. Just try a free routine and let your body tell you what the heck is going on. And then I'll take it from there.
Beautiful. I
Yeah.
love that, dude. Oh, last question.
Yeah.
Talking about, so you have that race coming up. Do you have any like kind of bucket list fitness, athletic kind of things you want to do? Like, is it like a 100-mile race or?
Dude, I want to know. I want to know 2 things. I want to know what mile 90 through 100 feels like. I want to know that. I think I do. I mean, I think I've got a pretty damn good idea what that feels like, and I'm not gonna want it in the moment. I want to know what that feels like, and I don't really drink anymore. I've given that up, but I kind of do want to know what a beer tastes like after 100 miles, like just a sip. I want to know, like, is it that good? It'll feel earned, I think, in that moment, and maybe that'll be my excuse. But that's probably the last thing I'll want after 100 miles.
Do you think you would do 100 miles in a in a race setting, like go do Leadville or I don't know, some epic 100-mile race?
Leadville attracted me because I ran Born to Run. That was I ran
nice.
Born to Run. I read Born to Run, and that was all about Leadville.
Yeah.
And so I think that initially put that race on the map. But I think if I were to do a 100-miler, it'd be with my friend Thomas DeLauer. And
You know Thomas?
Yeah.
Oh.
We're starting to get close, and like
Nice.
we talked about just doing this like epic Grand Canyon run.
Rim to rim to rim?
Yeah. And like not talking about it and just doing it, just doing a little bro trip over there. I think running 100 with a friend by ourselves and not sharing it with anybody would be awesome. But then I'd
sick.
talk all about it on every podcast. Because how could you not share that experience? You know?
Yeah.
It's a catch-22.
That'd be cool. We're getting a group together. I think it's end of October this year.
Done.
Yeah.
I'm in.
We're probably going to post about it though. So I don't know if it fits.
Look, I'm not there yet. I will fantasize about it. It will never happen. What is going on in October?
Yeah. It's, rim to rim to rim.
Yeah.
I've hiked it before, but I think we have like 8 people right now that are committed to running it. So it's roughly 50 miles. I think it's like 45 miles. And you go, I think the way we'll go, at least the way I hiked it last time was like south rim, start on the south rim, run across to the north rim, turn around, come back, finish on the south rim. So rim to rim to rim.
Okay.
45 miles roughly.
Great.
A lot of elevation gain and descent because you obviously drop like a mile down into the canyon to the river, go back up, and then do it again. Yeah.
What's the total mile on that?
I think it's 45 roughly.
Okay.
Depending on who you're looking at.
I'm in. So done.
Dude, let's do it.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Heck yeah.
Cool.
That'd be fun, man. But thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I learned a lot from this.
Good.
I'm getting a slant board.
Yes.
I'm gonna try the heels up thing on the chair, and I want to try this like 5 to 10 minute like feet up on the chair meditation kind of thing.
For anybody listening, for anybody still listening to this long, remind me. I will put together like a little Jeremy Miller, like a little link of these exercises and like visuals and like exactly how to do them, so you can just follow.
Oh, that'd be cool.
Yeah, I'll make it simple.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
Heck yeah, dude.
Cool.
I love it.
All right, I'm gonna catch my flight to LAX.
Yes, sir.
All right, brother. Thanks,
Goodbye.
man.
Goodbye, everybody.
Thank you so much for tuning into the show. If you enjoyed this episode, please make sure to subscribe to the channel, leave a review, and share it with a friend. We'll see you in the next one.